All right, well, I think we're close enough to 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Pape,
Here.
Councilmember Shavetta,
Here.
Councilmember Hands,
Here.
Councilmember Caldwell,
Here.
Councilmember Leahy,
Here.
Councilmember Neal,
Here.
Councilmember Ryder, here, Councilmember Silvers,
Here.
Councilmember Yodrich,
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, the next item is public items. Members of the public are encouraged to use this time to make comments about matters that do not appear on the agenda. Comments about items on the regular agenda will be taken as each item is considered. Please note individuals making public comments will be limited to 5 minutes. In accordance with the governing body rules of procedure, the city reserves the right to refuse public comments that are personal, impertinent, or slanderous. I have several people here on the list. I assume some of these will potentially be in reference to what's on the agenda, but I'll just verify that Rick Williams, is that yours is on the agenda, correct?
Well, we were under the impression that we weren't going to be able to address the items at anything but the public comment section, so.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah,
some of the people were talking
I think typically we would do it at the time of yeah, so, no. We will address anything concerning the downtown, Merriam Drive project itself, when that comes up on the agenda. So if that's it, we'll do that at that time. Also, we have Anton Kreutz, which I assume is the same, okay? And Dan Leap, which I saw out there somewhere. Dan, yours is the same, correct? Okay. And Bob, is it Reich?
That's same for me.
Okay, same for you, okay. Now, that's the only 4 names I currently have on this list. Is anyone else out there currently that would like to speak concerning public items that is not on the agenda? Okay, please come forward and state your name and your address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Christopher Leach. I reside at 8600 West 60th Street in the beautiful city of Merriam, Kansas. I just want to say thank you to city staff for clearing the sidewalks during the snowstorm. I live in Merriam and I walk to the community center for my workout at 5 a.m. in the morning. And during the last snowstorm, when I approached, the sidewalk was clear and I was able to get here without walking in the street. It seems like a small thing, but I'm deeply appreciative of that. It helps create a city that's human scale and that I'm happy to live in. So thank you to all of you for that.
Thanks for sharing, Mr. Leach. Is there anyone else out there that would like to speak to a public item that's not on the agenda? Oh, yes, come forward, sir, and if it's not,
Covered the item, but a couple other things I can go now if you like, or later.
okay, is it on the agenda?
Some of it is, it's all under 5 minutes, though.
Okay, well, do you want to address the stuff that's not on the agenda now and then refrain from discussing agenda items till later?
It's all tied together.
It's all tied together? Okay, well, then let's just do it at that time then. No, I think if it's part of it's going to be on the agenda, anything else you have to say that's pertinent or we'll cover at that time when the agenda comes up. Thank you, Mr. Crone. Okay, no other people raising hands out there, I see. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close out the public portion of the public items, and those of you that's on that list will be brought up at the time that we discuss that item on the agenda. Next item up is the consent agenda. All items listed under this heading are considered to be routine by the city council, may be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member so request, in which case that item will be removed from the consent agenda. Considering we only have one item, is there anybody wants to discuss that before we entertain a motion? Okay. I would entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Mayor,
Sands.
I move that the council approve the consent agenda item, which is item number 1.
Item number 1. Do we have a second? Ms. Shadrich.
Mr. Mayor, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Shavetta,
Aye.
Councilmember Hands,
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell,
Aye.
Councilmember Lahey.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item up on the agenda is the mayor's report, and the first item on the mayor's report is employee recognition and service awards. And I'll come forward and I can turn that over to Mr. Engel. I call those people forward.
So this is our fourth quarter employee recognition award. We provide recognition to employees that are reaching some multiple of 5 years of service, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, sometimes 30 years of service. These folks are from a variety of different departments. Historically, we would recognize all of them at the beginning of the year, but it got to be a little bit easier to separate them so they can bring their families in and we can make some room for them to accommodate their families so they can share this evening with their families. So the first couple folks we have are 10 years of dedicated service to the city. First person with 10 years of dedicated service to our Public Works Department is Caleb Hunt. The next employee also with 10 years of dedicated service is Aaron Simmons with our police department. The third individual also with 10 years of service this evening is Anna Slocum with our Park and Rec department, 10 years of service. We also, in recognition of two individuals that couldn't be here this evening, we've got Todd Beeman with 10 years of dedicated service to our Public Works Department. He couldn't be here. Let's give him a little bit of appreciation. Then the final individual that couldn't be here is Phil Lewis with 20 years of dedicated service to our police department. He couldn't be here, unfortunately.
You want to get a picture of all of them? Okay. All of them that received awards, if you come up and we'll get a group photo. Thank you. Glasses back out so I can read here. Okay, other items on the mayor's report. Couple things. I mean, we had several things going on in the last week itself, or last 2 weeks. We had a First Suburbs Zoom meeting. I was not able to attend that. Was anyone on the council able to Zoom in on that? I wasn't. Just you, Ms. Hands did. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for doing that, and I'm sure you will bring that forward with what you learned to the rest of the council at a later date. We had a special council meeting, for those of you that didn't know that. It seems like we just met here recently, but that we're going to be covering that information again a little bit later. Thank you for all that attended that and all the council for coming to that special meeting and spending so much time on it. We also had a Northeast Chamber of Commerce State of the Cities address in which we had council members David Neal, Whitney Yodridge, Christine Hands, and Stacy Chavetta, plus Chris Engel, Jennifer Jones-Lacey, and Jenna Gant all attended that. A lot of great things going on in the county with all the cities that are represented. I think we did, we have a lot going on in Merriam, and I think I was very glad to share that with them. And very, very glad that Jenna wrote my speech, so I appreciate that, Jenna. Chief McLaughlin, Major Chris Brokoff, and Captain Troy Duvenal, myself attended the Olathe Overland Park and Leawood chapter of the NAACP Recognition Program and dinner in honor of Martin Luther King Day. So our police department has been involved in that in a number of years, and that was a very good event itself. Coming up, we have a meeting with the legislators on Wednesday, January 25th in Topeka. If you haven't reached out to Ms. Jones-Lacey, to tell her you want to go. I think we've got 7 of us that are attending on this coming Wednesday. So look forward to everybody going up there and meeting our legislators in Topeka. So, okay, that's all I have concerning the mayor's report. Moving right along. First item up on the council items is consider an agreement between Johnson County and the city of Merriam to share the design cost of the Upper Turkey Creek Stormwater Project. Looks like we got Mr. Engel coming to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor, Council. The next item on the agenda is really a housekeeping item. It is an agreement with Johnson County, the Stormwater Management Program, to help offset the cost of the design of the Upper Turkey Creek project, the project that we're doing with the Army Corps of Engineers. As you may recall, in June 13th to be specific, the city entered into a design agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers. The cost of that project was $1.4 million, the total cost of it. The federal local match is 65% is paid for by the federal government, 35% is paid for by the local agency. We're lucky enough in Johnson County to have good partners at the county, and they offset 75% of that 35%. At that time, we didn't have an agreement because, as you'll recall, that project and that funding just showed up at our doorstep, so we didn't have it budgeted. We had it budgeted, but it wasn't really encumbered and ready to go, and it wasn't encumbered and ready to go at the county. So this is basically a follow-up item to seek the reimbursement from the county. So we paid the $490,000 local match. We really only owe 25% of that, so we're seeking $367,500 back from the Stormwater Management Program. Happy to answer any questions about that. That will get us to about 25% design by hopefully the end of the summer. It's just to bless the relationship between the county and the city. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Engel this time? Okay, I see no questions. I guess that was covered, and I think we all want to get money back, so I would entertain a motion for this. Ms. Hands.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve a cost share agreement between the city and Johnson County for the Upper Turkey Creek Stormwater Project design.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second? Mr. Neal?
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, it looks like the next item on the council items is consider approval of the MOU between Bridging the Gap of the City of Merriam to facilitate the 2023 Tree Grant Program. Looks like we have Street Superintendent Randy Fine. Thank you.
Mayor, council. Yes, excuse me. I'm seeking the approval for the memorandum of understanding between the Bridging the Gap and City of Merriam. I'd like to introduce Sarah Crowder. She is with Heartland Tree Alliance, which is a kind of like a sub-segment of Bridging the Gap, and she's going to just come and talk to you about what their program is, and then I'll come back up and once she's done and kind of get the high points of how it'll benefit Merriam residents.
Thank you, Mr. Fine. Ms. Carter? Might give your name and address, or company address anyway, for the record.
Where am I going? That one?
Right down, yeah.
Thank you. She's got it.
All right. Good evening. Hello. My name is Sarah Crowder, and I am a director actually at Bridging the Gap. Our address for our offices are 1427 West 9th Street in Kansas City, Missouri. So first of all, thank you so much for bringing me here to chat with you just a little bit about this really exciting project. This is a really progressive, forward partnership here where we're looking to help you guys get trees planted in people's front yards. So let me tell you just a little bit about our organization. Bridging the Gap is an environmental nonprofit. We've been working in the Kansas City metropolitan greater area for over 30 years. We have 7 or 8 different types of programs. We do recycling and litter cleanup. We do invasive tree and plant removal and remnant prairies and seed collection. anything, I tell people, anything environmental, we've managed to get our fingers in. We do energy and water reduction and several different types of programs. What I'm here is to talk to you about our Heartland Tree Alliance program. Heartland Tree Alliance was started in about 2002. You guys remember the big ice storm. Shortly thereafter, a lot of our partners were state representatives from Kansas and Missouri. Utilities came together and said, we need a nonprofit that can help promote how valuable trees are. And we need a Right Tree, Right Place coalition is what they called themselves. Bridging the Gap, again, had been in the area working for a long time, and it just made sense for them to come over there under their 501c3. So we have a great steering committee that oversees a lot of our work, but our mission is to engage people in the greater Kansas City region to just appreciate trees and be advocates for trees. So let me just tell you a little bit about this program. Since 2016, Heartland Tree Alliance has been one of 2 contractors for the Kansas City, Missouri Parks Department, planting trees. We've planted over 4,000 trees for them in their public rights-of-ways. We've worked with the City of Liberty for multiple years for similar contracts. On the Kansas side, we've worked with Kansas City, Kansas, Lenexa, Westwood, and a few others, Prairie Village, and a few others in similar type contracts. So Randy reached out to me, asked some questions about the type of work we did, said that you guys were starting this initiative, and this is the proposal that we provided him. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but I'm just going to hit the highlights of what we're looking to do here. So I'm a certified arborist and an urban forester by trade. I should have told you that. I grew up in Northwest Arkansas on the Buffalo River and spending my time with my toes in the dirt, and this is really important work for us. I have certified arborists besides myself on staff. So we're not your contractor that you would get in your normal maybe bids for landscape work. We really focus on education. The majority of our work at Bridging the Gap is done volunteer with volunteers. This program, I see volunteers interacting in a different way. But with that being said, what we do is we will assist your residents when it comes to tree location and even tree species, meaning that we consider ourselves experts and we're able to help them with those processes. The planting will likely take place with our own personnel and our own staff. We may have some opportunities for volunteers, but again, I see this as sort of a smaller pilot project to see how it works with just internal staff. So what we're proposing to do is 85 1-inch caliper trees. That's about a 15 to 20 gallon tree. This gentleman's standing next to one. You'll see it's substantial. It's not a Arbor Day free seedling that you get in the mail. So this is over the calendar year of 2023. How we split it up between spring and fall. If you're not a tree planter or a gardener, you may not know, but we have 2 seasons here for tree planting. I wish we were the Pacific Northwest and could plant year-round, but we can't. The majority of our planting happens between March and Memorial Day, and then that's our spring season, and then our fall winterish season starts anywhere between late September and goes into December. So we'd be looking to break this up into 2 seasons. Besides meeting with the resident, we have a housing, sort of a landing page on our website. It's got frequently asked questions. We have a process for people to adopt these trees and or request these trees. We're working on, again, this is in development phase, but how we work through those requests, we'll be able to provide a wait list if we get an overwhelming number of people, which we would love. And we have a way to work through it like that already that we've created with our other partners. So I see in using that is a really helpful tool. Once we get those trees solidified, it will be something we will work with those residents, call utility locates. We're thinking about giving them a flag, letting them put where they want the tree, working through all of that up until the tree planting. We would plant the trees on site, and then we don't leave it and just forget it. That's not the way we work. So we would be continued support for that individual, meaning we get lots of pictures. What is this? This tree doesn't look so good. What am I doing wrong? Can you come check it? And we provide that sort of online support and or in-person support if needed. The other thing, we've created some additional messaging that we send out via email, usually 9 over a 1-year period. And they're just little things about don't forget to water, or diversifying your trees and planting different species is important. And they're just messages that we've developed over time that we like to keep engaged with the adoptees. We consider these folks, even though it's private property, this is a stewardship and this is a partnership between you and your residents to make sure that we get those healthy trees that we're looking for. And then finally, we would provide you, I don't know if you guys are familiar with iTree. iTree is a program where you can feed tree data into it, and it actually gives you some values of what those trees are providing you and your community. We are an urban forest, even though I may be on the Missouri side. We live under one urban forest, front yard, backyard, doesn't matter where your trees are. So these, you can kind of grow the trees out over a 20-year period, and you can see things like how much carbon is it going to sequester, what's its stormwater benefit, and just some other details that you might find interesting and another way to just promote the program. Here's a great group of volunteers spelling out tree. I mean, how can I told them, you know, I'm going to use this in everything from now on. But so that's all I have. I can bring Randy back up. But if you have any specific questions about the program, again, I would say that this is development stage. We're just starting to work through, you know, other pieces of it. So happy to answer those.
Any questions for Ms. Crowder?
On our end, what is our, how are we publishing anything about this?
Yes.
What our requirements are?
Yes, Randy, and
Since we have an
you want to answer that?
Oh, that's fine. Obviously, we'll do the Facebook post, we'll do all the social media, Merriam highlights, as
And
much
it-
as we can to.
Is it the first 85 who put their hands up?
Yeah, and then like she said, there'll be a wait list. Hopefully it'll roll over into next year if we continue to do this program.
Very good. Very good. Excited.
Other questions for Ms. Crowder or Mr. Fine? Okay.
Okay,
Is it-
well, thank you again, appreciate it.
Thank you for attending this evening and telling us about the program. Having said that, do you have any other questions?
We good?
for
I
us?
was gonna just follow up with
We
the,
need a motion.
Okay.
okay.
I think we're ready for a motion. If we have a motion on the, okay, yeah, Ms. Yadrich, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve a memorandum of understanding between Bridging the Gap and the City of Merriam for the yard tree planting program.
Okay, we have a motion. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Ryder.
Mr. Mayor, I second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It looks like the next item on the council agenda is consider approval of fiscal year 2022 audit engagement letter with AGH. Looks like we have Director Oliver. Go ahead.
This letter would, as it says, engage AGH to do our fiscal year audit. In 2017, the city approved a contract with AGH to conduct the years 2018 through 2022 audit. So this would be the final year of that contract.
Any questions for Ms. Oliver? She tries to book out of there. Or is it- Okay, I see no questions. I'd entertain a motion. Okay, Ms. Hands.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve an audit arrangement letter with AGH for 2022 auditing services.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Ms. Yadrich?
Mr. Mayor, I second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Looks like the next item up is public art process. Looks like we have Ms. Jennifer Jones-Lacey.
Hello, everyone. Jennifer Jones-Lacey, Assistant City Administrator. I'm here before you tonight to talk about the public art process, a review of where we've been and where we hope to go moving forward. And the purpose of bringing this before you is because we have budgeted these funds. And before we got all into the process and got super excited, we wanted to make sure that you guys were fully supportive and on board with what we're proposing here. This was actually a council agenda, or council objective, a goal for 2023. The primary goal was enhance community identity and connections, and a subcomponent of that objective was to support a public art program throughout the city. And as such, you all approved as part of the budget, the CIP, $115,000 for public art annually, starting in 2023. So $575,000 altogether. Give you a brief overview of the public art that we have installed in case you've forgotten. The first one is Still Time, and that was installed in 2016 for a total cost of $132,000. And that is at the corner of Johnson and Merriam Drive. Second piece of art was Planting the Seeds, installed in 2017 at the Farmers Market for $114,000. And then the third one was the installation at Waterfall Park. It's such a weird, awkward thing to say to you all. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Anyway, you get the gist. It was the Caterpillar Karen piece of art at Waterfall Park, as installed in 2019 for $106,000. And then finally, we have Basque, installed at the community center in 2020, which was a larger piece of public art. It had two components, both the installation in the courtyard as well as the one on the parking garage. And this was actually funded through the community center fund, so that was separate from the public art funds that you all had allocated through that process. And so moving forward, we want to re-engage the ad hoc public art committee. That consists of 2 council members and then up to 7 additional members of the public. And that's including 1 park board rep. I have reached out to those individuals to get initial interest in whether or not they want to continue. And then I've heard from several of them. There's at least 1 individual who does not intend to continue. And so we would go through a public process to find out other individuals who may be interested in participating in this. The committee will begin planning for art using those budgeted funds, and then we will have a meeting to kind of figure out placement as well as process, selecting a supervisor for selecting the art and going through all of that. And then one thing I wanted to assure you all is that we plan to provide more frequent updates to council so you all feel like you are informed and a part of the process and understand what is happening as we receive some of the RFPs and give you an idea of what the art committee is recommending prior to making those selections so that you can, have that contribution and make sure that you feel that you're a part of that process. And we also, of course, intend to have those 2 council members a part of that committee, and right now it's Councilmember Evans-Hands and Councilmember Shavetta. And that is basically the summary. As long as you all are good with that, I basically am just looking for a thumbs up, and of course I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, go ahead, Shadridge.
My only, cough drop. I wasn't on the previous committee or the council last time the selection process was underway, but my biggest concern with the previous pieces, though beautiful, is that we didn't focus a lot on local artists. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we could try to focus more on local artists or regional artists.
Yeah, and that can certainly be a part of that conversation when we gather that committee together to express that there is a request to have some emphasis on local artists. And there are many fabulous local artists that we could select from, so.
Right, I mean, you can go through groups like Kansas City Artists Coalition and, like all those other places to put out requests for those things. So we can try to get calls for those things.
I do want to say that we did reach out to local artists as well. It's not like we didn't do that, but we didn't focus all of our effort there, for sure.
Mr. New?
Yeah, the decision to reengage the previous committee, I mean, this was over, a 5-year period, and then there was a gap of a couple of years here. So that, why wasn't it a decision made to put a general request out for people that would be interested in being on the committee? What was the decision behind that? How it just reengage who was previously on there?
Yeah, I think that the idea is that they had previously had experience going through this process because there's a lot to it. You know, you need to have somebody with expertise who can go through and help you narrow down artists because, of course, as everybody knows, art is absolutely a subjective thing. And so having somebody, these individuals who've gone through this process for several years, they add some value to that, to that process. And so as a sort of courtesy for them being involved in the past, we wanted to reach back out to find out if they would be interested in continuing. And as I mentioned, at least one individual had mentioned that they would not like to be on the committee moving forward. So that will open up at least one spot for somebody new to potentially join.
I guess as a follow-up, this particular area of expenditure was somewhat painful, and at times in the process there were quite a bit of opposition or at least questioning of some of the decisions. And it seems like this would be an opportunity for an additional sort of infusion of ideas. If there are folks out there that would want to do that, I'd certainly encourage them to apply for the one spot. But again, having lived through that part of that turmoil, it would, I really hope that we can do a better job of somehow engaging the community, and so there is not as much surprise for some of the decisions. And certainly we were surprised a few times as well. So
Right.
and I know you're trying to address that. So
Yes,
thank you for that.
absolutely. And there may be more than one position open for new folks. And another thing I wanted to mention is another component of the goal and the objective to invest in public art was for staff to research private funding of public art. And so one of the items I want to bring before you in the near future is a resolution or a policy to look at creating a 1% for art program in the city so that new construction would provide for essentially a requirement to contribute to public art, so that they would have to either install public art on their property or contribute to a fund where that would help support public art in Merriam. And so that's just a preview of something that will come before you in relative short order.
Any other questions for Ms. Jones, Leslie? Yeah, Mr. Caldwell.
Well, we have budgeted for this over the next 5 years. All that is subject, of course, to the economic health of the city and the economic health of the economy. So how do we make sure that we keep everybody's expectations the same, that if, sales tax revenues go down or for whatever reason, we could choose not to fund this,
Right.
not disappoint this committee that we're not being supportive of them?
And we can certainly make that clear in the beginning that it would be subject to annual appropriation. And that could change. If something happens in Merriam where, sales tax for vehicles just totally plummets or whatever, then we can make sure that they're aware that every year this could change. And so something that they may look to do is potentially save money to invest in a larger piece. And that, could certainly affect that, but hopefully we will continue on our healthy financial perspective and it will work out. But we'll make sure and be fully transparent about that.
If I could add, and the council could just reprioritize. There doesn't have to be an economic issue. The council every year, all these things are subject to appropriation. Council could decide that they no longer want to support an art program, so it doesn't even have to be an economic reason. It can simply change in values.
My concern is we have a team of people that come together and do a lot of great work, and
Sure.
then we just pull the rug out from underneath them, and they don't understand that
Sure.
they're always on a rug that could be pulled out.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, to add to that though, currently, like, they've all been waiting 3 years right now to reconvene. So, I mean, they'll be used to it if it's the same group, even if new people are there, as one of those people.
Any other questions? So I assume, seeing none, I assume we just want a head nod from council people that you want, that's okay for her to go ahead and reengage this committee? Is that- All in favor of that? Okay.
Great.
Looks like the majority are, so.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item up on the council items is consider approval of revised plans for the street improvements to Merriam Drive from Johns Drive to West 55th Street. And we have Mr. Engel at the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a second here. Here we go. The next item on the agenda is a follow-up item from our special council meeting on Thursday night. Special council meeting being to discuss the street design of Merriam Drive from Johnson Drive to 55th Street. Had lots of folks here on Thursday night, lots of good opinions, lots of good conversations going on in terms of both for and against. The council, I thought, did a good job of listening and kind of trying to sort through some of those things and looking for a compromise, perhaps, to go forward with. That compromise was to extend the designed 3-lane street profile to the 58th Terrace Street, which would eliminate some west side parking while maintaining the east side parking. So we would lose 4 parking spots that are there now. We would add 6, so there would be a net gain of 2 on the east side, but it would extend the stacking. I think what we heard from the opponents to the design was there's a concern that the stacking with the current design poses a danger to their businesses or a hindrance to their businesses because of the traffic. So I think the council, again, did a good job of trying to find a middle ground and trying to navigate between the desires of those that were here that were in support and those that were against. I'm happy to answer any questions about this design. I have a couple slides. These were in the packet. This would just be the regular schematic. The next version would be over the existing curb lines so we can see what it would look like versus today. And then, again, happy to answer any questions about that particular design if there are any questions about that design.
Any questions for Mr. Engel about the design? Again, Mr. Neal?
Again, I wasn't here on Thursday physically. I was here remotely on the phone, and so I wasn't able to see some of the things. And I clearly believe that the stacking is a potential problem that we don't really know how severe it's going to be at this point, and there's a lot of factors coming down the pike that may impact that. At the moment, in the moment on Thursday night, Councilmember Hands proposed keeping the 3 lanes back to Hawker. And in looking at this, and I also mentioned that we could do a temporary traffic study to see what happens if whatever configuration we're looking at. We can try it by using cones, not just marking the road off, and see what happens for a week or two and see how far back we need to go. The more I've thought about this, I think we need to either do that, because I don't honestly, that doesn't still seem long enough. And it also, there's going to be vehicles trying to make a left turn going in the northbound direction as well that can also stop traffic if they can't get through that second lane further back would also help alleviate the ability for traffic to clear and cross, I think. So I kind of feel like we're relooking at the design, but I think that possibly the Hawker point would be a better point, better place to take the lanes back to. And so my question is, it seems like we've looked at some of this. What would we lose by extending back to Hawker instead of where we have it right now? Because that seems like we're not really 3 lanes all the way even back to 58th Terrace.
If we took this existing design all the way back to Hawker,
Well, no, just the lanes, the number of lanes, the center lane, retaining the center lane back to Hawker.
right, but do you want to take it as designed here or as it sits today? Because this is a different design. So this has
Yeah.
on-street parking on the east side.
Right, and I was going to get to that as another point. I don't know, I didn't hear that we'd decided the east side or the west side as far as the on-street parking Thursday night, but it's possible I just missed it. Being in a remote, it's hard to hear
Sure, it
sometimes.
helps when you're here, sure.
I know.
Sure.
I try to be here, but, that was kind of an ad hoc thing that came up, so I couldn't be here. What would we lose in terms of the design by having the 3-lane profile back to Hawker?
Well, again, if you leave what is there today, you don't lose anything from today. It looks exactly like it does today.
But I'm talking about from the design
So
that
if
we
you
brought
take this
forward.
design back, then you would sacrifice the west side parking. You would essentially just take this section right here, and you would chase, if you're going from this current design, you would just take the curb line all the way back here. You'd use the existing curb. So you would sacrifice the additional sidewalk over here.
Right, which, as I understood, was for possible sidewalk events and, sidewalk cafes and things like that possibly being
Or just that makes it
accommodated.
safer. I mean, it makes it safer and more accommodating. But yeah, I mean, I suppose people could use it for cafes.
Okay, and then so that's, are we sacrificing, bicycle traffic by doing that, or in some way? Are we making that harder? Are we making, what else are we losing that was as a gain from the road redesign?
Well, I mean, part of the idea was to route some of the ability for families to use that for, so it'd maybe be kids' bicycles, but a lot of this is gonna be sharrows. So you're sacrificing pretty much the sidewalk. That's it. You're sacrificing the north edge sidewalk.
Okay,
Now what you're going to do with it being that wide, it doesn't have the tendency to slow down traffic as much, which was also, that was a key goal of what the committee's work was to slow the traffic down. Again, we were never designing to keep this a freeway to keep people flowing through there. It was simply it was to slow traffic down. So
Yeah.
if you keep it wide, the times when it's not congested, people will.
so have we had, what level of speeding problem have we been experiencing along Merriam Drive that would require a severe slowdown?
I don't know what a severe slowdown
Yeah,
is.
I
but
don't either, but-
the whole idea is just to make it more pedestrian friendly.
Okay, and I think that's a good goal. However, I also think that this is a road design, and roads also serve a vital purpose of moving vehicular traffic to and from where they need to go. And many of the current businesses are not likely to be, or some of them anyway, are going to be businesses where people who use those businesses are going to come in a vehicle because, lugging a big instrument on your back on a bike or, whatever, are things that are not serving, that's not practical for the current, some significant stakeholders in the area. And so I think there has to be balance between the enhancements that enhance walkability and bikeability and the functionality of the traffic function of a road. And so I would respectfully request us consider going back to the Hawker proposal. And also, My other question has to do with why we would need to take away the west side. Could we have a design that the 3 lanes were more in the direction of sacrificing the east side that doesn't have them already?
Certainly, I'm sure we could shift this street like that. Would have to ask the design team
Yeah.
if we could, but that's what it
I
looks
guess
like
what was
now.
the selection, what was the reason for deciding on the west side? Because I thought I heard
Because it was to
question-
take the existing design and chase it back to 58th. This is the existing design. The existing design has the on-street parking on the east side, and it had it on the west side, but there wasn't enough stacking. So to accommodate the stacking and to preserve the existing design, you can't have on-street parking and 3 lanes and accommodate all that.
And I know we don't have, I guess we don't have the experts here who answered questions on Thursday, but I thought I heard a question concerning the turning ability of vehicles, of trucks and emergency vehicles that would have to swing out a little bit to make the turn. And I thought that, and again, I'm not sure because I wasn't able to see what was being pointed at, but was that with the design as it is with the,
That would be coming into 58th Terrace. They said you'd have to go into the southbound lane, or you'd have to run over kind of the corner, run over the curb.
right? And that's because,
You'd have to come across the line. I mean, you don't have to come all the way into the other line traffic, but you would have to cross the line.
okay, and that's, okay, so that doesn't really have anything to do with or does that have something to do with the width of the 2 lanes there at 58th Terrace, or does that have something to do with, would that be alleviated somewhat by having it wider there?
Width here or the width here? The width of Merriam Drive or the width of 58th Terrace?
Sorry.
What width?
Actually, I was just trying to figure out what that, what that comment was about on Thursday.
I think the question was just would fire trucks or loading trucks, if they needed to go up 58th Terrace, could they clear this with the existing lane? That's what I believe that the question was about.
Okay.
Would you agree?
If we narrow it at that point, you see how the curb line is narrowing before 58th Terrace.
Right here?
Yeah, well, and up on the other side as well, so there's going to be traffic that's further, out into the road than would be the case if there was a middle lane there. If there was a middle lane there still, the bulk of the traffic would be further away from that turn, and it would theoretically provide a
It
little bit
also
more.
requires all of this to be full at the same time. Sorry, I keep
Understood.
hitting the wrong button. Yeah, I mean, if this is all stacked up and you had a situation where you needed to get a truck in here and you've got all of this full, yeah, it could be.
So that,
There's a lot of movement going on in there,
Right.
or lack of movement.
but that would be essentially alleviated to a greater degree if we took the 3 lanes back further than we have now.
Not necessarily. I mean, because if you have all that traffic that's in that left lane today,
Right, when it's backed up, but.
correct. Yeah, that's all we're talking about is when it's backed up. When it's not backed up, it won't be an issue,
Okay.
right? I mean, at least that's I'm not a traffic engineer, but I mean, if there's nobody there,
Yeah.
then there's nothing impeding any of that movement from happening. We're only talking about when the traffic is double stacked back up that far. From my
Right.
non-engineered perspective.
Chris, I wanted to ask a question. I thought when we were talking about extending the 2 southbound lanes, I thought we were going to go almost all the way back to 58th Terrace. When I was envisioning it, I thought it would be more of a steep curb cut to the west, basically at that drive aisle, between the drive aisle and the raised sidewalk.
Like here?
Yeah, more of like a steep curb cut, similar to 58th Terrace on the east side, to get a full 2 lanes all the way back to 58th Terrace. least that's what I had envisioned.
We
traffic
can certainly
engineer, but-
ask them to design it that way. I mean, this was, again, this is on the fly. This was so we
Yeah.
could have it ready in the short order of time. So, I mean, certainly, so what you're saying is similar to where the curb line that was in here before, you can kind of see it a little bit, how it takes this drastic cut around
Yeah.
here, as opposed to this gradual.
Just push that curve, that
Sure.
change
So you
to
can
the
stack all
north.
the way back further.
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
way
I
to
mean,
58th
I
Terrace.
would guess that
That's,
they could
that's
do
what I
that.
had in mind when I was talking about it, but.
I would guess they could do that. We certainly could ask them.
Any other questions, Mr. Engel? Don't see any additional questions this time. I guess we'll open up the public. I know we have people that want to speak to this, and we'll go by this list as it's, as you guys have signed up. Rick Williams would be first to the podium. Sir, please give your name and address for the record.
There's a handout that's coming around. My name's Rick Williams. 9214 West 58th Terrace is the location of my business. I'm the owner of RC Williams Company and president of Downtown Merriam Partnership. I am passing out, or they are passing around a counter proposal to try and eliminate this, and it's good that those are up there, because if you take a look at the, oh, there is? Okay. Oh, this aisle here is the entrance for the parking lot for KC Strings. Now, remember, I'm not part of KC Strings anymore, so it's not going to hurt me if you decide to try and kill them off, but this is the ADA ramp. This is the ADA parking. If you have 2 lanes here, you got instant traffic gridlock. Anytime when you get any kind of stacking going on, that's going to jam that up, and it's going to be a problem. The drawing that you have, as pathetic as it is, all I had was a little measuring stick and one of the other outlet layouts and my computer to try and draw something up to show this. So I didn't leave the left hand, or the parking on the west side of the street, but a simple mill and overlay for that part going back, and then either starting the taper back at this alley on back, or at Hawker or 85th Street, whichever you want to call it back there, would eliminate, it would give you deeper stacking all the way down here, legal or not, because periodically it's necessary. But even with the Operation Greenlight stuff, if you've got everybody bottled up here, it's of no help to, when a train's going by, it's of no help to clear the just southbound traffic. Whereas, if you get a more stacking in there, I have seen the stacking packed all the way up past the, on 2 lanes, all the way past the Merriam Marketplace. I'm not afraid of progress, although I've been perhaps accused of being afraid of change. I'm afraid of having this jammed up down here so people can't get through, and so that businesses get hurt, and so that that there's, I currently can't get trucks back to my building, so I may have to, you do enough of that, I'll have to have them park out in the middle of Merriam Drive and wait for me to get out there with a forklift to put my stuff on it when it's going to Japan or Australia or Vienna. So I'm trying to help with the solution, not screw it up worse. We don't need, but what we do needs to be something that's going to work. And with the amount of, as far as I know, there's been no studies on the traffic in and out of all these little things down here. And those little things down here were part of what convinced the preceding arrangement to end up the way it is because there's just little people turning in and out of a lot right there in that very first part of it. And if you ignore that, you are going to damage the ability of people to do business. You're going to make it more dangerous because when people get frustrated, they do stupid stuff They do stupid stuff even when they're not frustrated, but you're going to increase that problem. So please consider an alternate plan. It's something, I mean, I'm obviously not a traffic designer here, because to me, you just make it as simple and straightforward as possible. But you really need to leave the front end of this thing alone, or you're going to have to pay to have it done over, as far as I can tell. And I know I'm just a simple old guy, but please, look it over, think about it clearly, and please make a decision which gets us enough room for all this kind of traffic stuff to be handled. You can slow down the traffic going through the marketplace, and then the only thing you got to worry about is every time the guys get a shipment of cars in, you'll have a little bit of a snarl there, but that's usually during the middle of the day. I guess I've overrun my time, haven't I?
Well, you got 17 seconds, but thanks, Mr.
Okay.
Williams.
Well, it's just strictly trying to, where the hell was I? I don't know. I guess I'm lost.
I think we know what you're talking about, though.
Okay.
Thanks,
Well,
Mr.
and
Williams.
you all can read, so I mean, it's all written there on the page too.
Thank you for coming forward. Next person up will be Anton Kreutz. Yes.
My own timer, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Anton Kreutz, 5842 Merriam Drive.
Thank you.
Or Casey Strings. All right, I'll start it. This weekend, I had a few email exchange with Jacob, and he was taking me to task about coming in late on all this, and he is 100% correct. I came in definitely late on all this, but I feel I was justified and I needed to do it because, just like I've said a couple times before, the plan that was proposed for this intersection, I mean, everything else north of Hocker, beautiful, it's great, but this intersection was absolutely going to be a detriment to Merriam Drive, was going to be a detriment to the city of Merriam. And if you were to ask a transparent question to all the Merriam businesses and residents, and that transparent question would be, would you approve that the city spend taxpayer funds to congest the intersection of Johnson Drive and Merriam Drive? The vast, vast majority of Merriam businesses and citizens would say absolutely not. They would say absolutely not. So I saw that immediately, and that's why I came up, and it was for the greater good. Going to Thursday's meeting, Chris proposed a motion about going to Hocker with the 3 lanes. I thought that was very good. We had some back and forth, make it a little shorter. I can see where there could be a compromise, can make it a little shorter, but it should be going past our main. Does this thing work? Well, anyway, it's we have our main alley entrance, and the majority of left turn lanes go into our main alley or the 58 Terrace, and so the 2 lanes need to at least extend past the 58. The 3 lanes need to extend north past the 58 Terrace to at least past our driveway, so people can safely turn in there. So I think there needs to be a revision and of this motion. And as far as I understand, when the engineers were talking, they said, hey, we just want to give you a drawing so we all could be on the same page. And that's what I understood. So this isn't the final be-all. This should really be just, hey, this is where we're at so we can talk about it. And that's where I feel we're at. We're just having a drawing that everyone could talk about. As for the parking places, those parking places were assigned when they first renovated Merriam Drive over 20 years ago, is because the west side businesses only have 5 public parking places. The east side businesses have 22 on 58 Terrace, up and down. And the many bars that have been there through time, most of their clients are in the evening, and after 5 o'clock, all the other east side businesses of downtown Merriam are closed, and so the bars that are there, Blondie's now, they have 22 parking places for their main operating time. So we have 5 for all the west side businesses. To remove them is unconscionable. To say that, oh, well, this is a plan and we can't do anything about it, is saying we're impotent to make any plans. I think to Rick's point, he said, keep everything that's there, which have saved less money, save money, and just, get to the 2 lanes, somewhere, before Hawker, whatever, but as long as it's past our main driveway. And the traffic will slow down because it's going through 2 lanes all the way up to, like basically downtown Merriam. In my view, this is something that is a reasonable compromise. We already came to a point that we understand that, hey, we need to change this traffic system, which is this extended intersection, having whatever these 15-foot wide sidewalks for the 3 people that are walking during the day. You guys ever been down there? There's 3-4 people. I know we want more, but in Mission, when they redid their roads, it's after people moved in. But it's has no logic to it at all to have these sidewalks. And in terms of our parking, again, if that's taken away, if that's voted on, then that I see as no difference than having a retaliation, retribution, and reprisal on the West Side businesses for speaking up. And if our parking is taken away and we can't move in and out, just like Rick said, that's damaging our businesses. And if people ask us and our clients ask us why our parking places are gone, why can't we put the school buses, why can't we do the touring that we do for Merriam Visitors Bureau, I'm going to tell them it's because we had a retaliation, retribution, and reprisal by the Merriam City Council against us for speaking up, which it was for the benefit of all of the city and Merriam Drive. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kreutz. Okay, next person up would be Dan Leap. Please come forward, sir. Name and address for the record, Mr. Leap.
Dan Leap, 5848 Merriam Drive. I was here Thursday. I'm basically saying the same thing. Rick and Anton have pretty much covered everything. I'm with the businesses. I'm one of the businesses. I'm also a primary resident there at Merriam Drive and Johnson Drive. I don't believe there's any other residents in that area. We have all been talking down there, and this plan here is no good at all. I appreciate Christine Hand's motion for looking at it, and I hope that you all would take some more time to look at it. Like Anton said, he might have came late, but that's because he didn't know about it. I didn't know about the plan either. I found out from Anton. That's how I found out about the plan, which surprises me because I'm on the Merriam Drainage Board, and we have meetings in my building every month. And both Councilman Silvers and Yodridge have been in my building attending these meetings and haven't said a word to any of us down there about this coming. So not a big deal, but I just hope that since we didn't know, hopefully you'll take your time and straighten this out, do a good job. This is a simple thing. You don't even need a drawing. You can come down to Merriam Drive, Johnson Drive, look at the road, look at the parking in front of Casey Strings. There's one half spot in front of my building. Somebody incorrectly mentioned there was 4 spots earlier. There's actually 5. It might be striped for 4, but there's 5 if you come down and look. There's always 5 cars there. But it's a simple thing. If you come look at the road, we have 3 lanes. We have 4 lanes. So we have the one straight one, we have the turn lane, we have the other straight one, and we have the right turn lane. All those are important. We need to keep it the way it is and beautify the sidewalks, maybe redo the trees, and definitely the street lights, and whatever you guys want to do would be great. But the road profile at Johnson Drive needs to stay exactly the same. And with that, if you run it back to, keep it the same back to Hawker, we won't need to lose the parking on the west side. And so, it's a simple thing. It'll save the city money. You can still beautify. You can change it to 2 lanes down past Hawker, if that's what you guys think best. There's going to be problems, though, when the car haulers come and want to park in that lane, one of the 2 lanes, to unload 6 to 8 cars. Takes them about 20 minutes. I've watched them. And the 2 places that happens is Lean Motors and the Nationwide Auto, which is across the alley from KC Strings. So those 2 businesses are going to need to be able to have trucks load and unload. Furthermore, KC Strings and myself are hooked up with the Merriam Visitors Bureau, and they bring a bus load of about 50 elderly people to tour our places. Now, I don't care. I'll quit the tour. It don't matter to me. I could really care less. But we do it. Strings does it because they got a great product. I do it. I don't know why they called me. I guess because I've been on HGTV and Fun Living Network and a bunch of other shows. But anyway, the bus is parked there in that parking. And if they don't have that parking in front of KC Strings, then they're going to have, I don't know how they're going to unload the 50 elderly people, but it's going to take 20 minutes to load and unload for them. So I hope that we can keep it as is, keep the turn lane, just fix it up, make it look pretty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Okay, Bob, is it Rick? Richard?
My writing is not
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Richard.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff, thank you very much. My name is Rob Richardson with Richardson Brothers Development. I'm working with the folks that spoke just a few minutes ago. I haven't had the pleasure of being here before, so just a little bit about me. I've got about 30 years experience, probably a little more now, every day, in planning, very complex planning and traffic issues. When I left one of my previous positions, I was the longest tenured planning director in the metro area. You mentioned First Suburbs. I happened to be at the very first Suburbs Committee when Mark did that, the very first Creating Quality Places Committee meeting when they held that, and the very first PSP meeting when they did that. I love planning. I love traffic calming. It's very good. It has its place, and it works very well. Mr. Dink can attest to this. Sometimes when you do a planning process, and he's seen me in your shoes, sometimes, by no fault of your own, you've tried really hard, and when people come up like this, you feel like you had a miss. And it's not very fun to sit in that seat when that happens, and I've been there. But the thing to do then is to step back and take a look and see what's going on here, and take the time to get through the process with the people, even if they're late to the process. Sometimes notice doesn't work. Sometimes our best outreach doesn't work. And that's just unfortunate. It's just part of city government. It happens sometimes. And it's none of us want it to be that way, but it just happens that way. I have 5 or 6 comments that I'd like to make. If you implement this plan without the extensions, you really eliminate the ability to do your future plan, because you'll never gain that capacity back, and you'll never have alternatives that you have today when you build the high-density stuff along the new road that's planned and shown in the documents. Unless you have a train or a light rail or some other kind of public transit right there, what you show there creates so much density, your traffic counts are going to go up here incredibly high beyond what they are now. And you simply won't be able to, it won't be workable. Nobody will want to be there. The developers want the traffic to flow. My most recent experience with being in your seat was along Rainbow, working on a PSP grant to help Rainbow along where the university is and looking at alternative street designs there. And we went back to the drawing board because it just, what we came up with just didn't work. The traffic study shows the queue goes back almost 300 feet. And that's what the folks that spoke before me have talked about. That queue, when it goes back, it inhibits left-hand turns. And if you can't turn left and you stop there until the light clears, you may or may not be able to turn before it backs up again if somebody's nice, and then you could create stacking all the way back into the intersection. We've all experienced that, right? I mean, we've seen that in other places when we've been driving around this town or another one. a little bit about trains and I-35. In a major traffic area, when you're doing a traffic study and you have special events, when those special events exceed 10% of your days, they need to be accounted for in the study. And I haven't had a chance to look at the detailed numbers to know if your train events or your I-35 accident events exceed 10% of your days, but that question should be asked. And if they do, then you need to plan for it. And it stinks when you do. When we added the soccer stadium at Village West, we went over 10% of our days with special events. That adds 10 zeros to projects when you look at projects in that area. But you have to consider it. Doesn't mean you fix all those, but you at least consider them so you see more options in what you have to deal with there. Quite simply, as a guy who's been hit, riding my bicycle to the bike-in movie night on Merriam Lane, I was hit. I have 2 bad discs and 2 bad vertebrae from 2012. The best safety barrier for pedestrians and bicyclists is parking, or a hard barrier. If you look at the national data, nobody is saying anymore that bike lanes and sharrows are safer than riding in the lane. My wife hasn't let me even fix my road bike. My other road bike is on my trainer. It's all on trails now, which stinks because they're not as fun to ride. You can't go as fast. You know, it looks like you have a really big safety increase by percentage by what the traffic engineering study said, and by percentage it is. But the reality, looking purely at traffic and what traffic accidents are, and they're bad, but when you don't have a problem, slight increases equal big percentages. And the last thing I would say is I would never design something that caused people to cross over into an alternative lane for traffic. That is a number one no-no. I appreciate your time tonight. It's nice to meet you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Okay, Billy Crone, I think it's the next one on the list.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I brought my own little timer as well. The last couple council meetings, it became clear as of late that the city administration does not disclose the negatives of its plans nearly as well as the positives. I'm reminded of a classic Douglas Adams story, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Opens with the complete destruction of planet Earth by an alien civilization. But unlike other sci-fi alien stories of war and hostility, these destroyers were completely peaceful. Their intent was to improve our galaxy with a new interstellar highway that just so happens to conflict with Earth's location. And it turns out we gave them permission to destroy our planet by failing to respond to the public notice that they so valiantly posted for 1,000 years prior at our nearest supernova. With so many planets in the galaxy, how could we expect them to visit us face to face and communicate the negatives of their plan? 2 council meetings ago, staff framed the idea of knocking on every business door in downtown Merriam to speak with owners as a major effort, but it's not. Downtown Merriam doesn't have thousands of businesses. There's 8 doors to knock on Merriam Drive between Johnson and 58th Terrace. It is too often left as an exercise to studious Merriam residents and businesses to uncover what will be lost or damaged in the wake of shiny new plans. And if we don't discover these problems quickly enough, then we, the citizens of Merriam, are dismissed as horses, unwilling to drink water by an actual sitting councilperson. I think this is what causes the greatest discord between our community and its government. When my neighbors discover the flaws of new plans at the 11th hour, it feels like government's trying to pull the wool over our eyes. If the negatives of this street project were transparently disclosed up front, spending our tax money to congest traffic at one of the busiest intersections in Merriam, very few people would have supported it. At last week's meeting, the city administrator even admitted from behind his stack of 3-ring binders that maintaining traffic flow was not a priority during the formation of this plan. And after the money would already be spent on construction, there would certainly be a horde of angry residents after the fact, if not sooner. Last meeting, multiple non-resident politicians descended from across the county to speak about the importance of bike lanes. I wonder how they heard about our little meeting here in tiny old Merriam. It is also funny that I didn't see any bicycles parked out in front of City Hall at that meeting. We should keep the physical profile of Merriam Drive as it is today, unchanged, between Johnson and Hawker, and repaint the center lane to welcome the left queuing that we so clearly need because of our unique conditions in Merriam. Knowing we can't depend on staff to point out drawbacks, I was reviewing the agenda of tomorrow's Parks and Rec meeting, and there was a freeze frame on the agenda from a video about the Turkey Creek flood project, the flood mitigation project. It looks in that video like we're going to lose a large part of the Turkey Creek Trail, if not multiple large sections, cutting our community into pieces. I hope this is not the case. I served 6 years on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and not once did staff warn any of the board members about that risk. Losing the trail hasn't been specifically announced to the community either, as far as I'm aware, but then again, there was not a giant announcement about losing that center turn lane and the right turn lane. So I really hope that Turkey Creek Trail will not become another victim of vision in a vacuum. Please assure us that Turkey Creek Trail will remain in its continuous entirety. Please assure us that when residents and businesses come here as a service to the city to prevent detrimental plans from taking hold, that they should be welcomed and not punished for their contribution with targeted takebacks of long-standing on-street parking. And in the interest of fairness and transparency, please assure us that other such losses will be specifically announced early and with equal clarity to the potential gains sought by future city plans. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crone. Okay, that's the only individuals I have currently that are on the list. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak to this item? Okay, I see no one else coming forward this time, so we'll close out the public portion of that process itself. Well, we're kind of at that stage itself as far as from a council standpoint. You've heard people both pro and against going forward with the plan that was proposed at the Thursday meeting. I guess we need to decide if there's what is the, what would the council, I guess, like to do? I see Mr. Neal has his hand up, so I'll defer to you right now, Mr. Neal.
I would like to make a motion that we consider another design iteration that moves the 3-lane portion further to at least past the alleyways where left turn lanes are going to be, left turns for the northbound traffic will be occurring. And I would also like to see what kind of a design we could have that would take the 3 lanes back to Hawker and continue the parking on the west side. I think that's, I'll leave that as the motion.
So the motion is for 2 new designs. One that takes the modified one we just looked at to the north side of Casey Strings alleyway. Then the other one is a 3-lane profile from Johnson Drive all the way to Hawker that is shifted to the east, so it maintains the existing parking spots on the west.
In either case, I would like to see a design that preserves the parking on the west side and takes the new parking from the east side where it's not currently.
Okay.
That would be also the simplest, probably least expensive to do that.
So the 2 designs that you would like, that your motion pertains to, is 3-lane profile to the north of Casey Strings alleyway, and then 3-lane profile to Hawker, both of which maintain the existing parking on the west, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. I think Mr. Engel understands what it is. Do I hear a second? For Mr. Neal's motion. Okay, I see no seconds for that. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Silvers.
I wanted to discuss this a little bit, but a motion has been made, so it kind of takes away our ability to discuss, correct? Or no?
Well, yeah, typically, if we get a second, I guess we.
So if it dies for lack of a second, you're not going to have discussion.
Right.
Usually you have discussion after a motion and a second.
Have a second, then discuss.
But we could discuss it before the vote.
So if it fails, and then you want to have discussion now, you can do that, and then maybe you retake up Mr. Neal's motion again after discussion.
Well,
Could second it and have a discussion
Right.
also.
I'll second it so we can have a discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Before we call for the vote, we will open it up for discussion. Is there discussion of that? No discussion, no more. Have a vote on it. Mr. Silvers, do you have something you'd like to talk about?
Well, yeah. So I got onto the city council because and I brought this up before, when I lived in KCMO, I felt like the city council kind of ignored us residents, and my old neighborhood got systematically dismantled, which is why I ended up selling my house. Now, the difference between what was going on then and what's going on now is I played a large part in going to a lot of meetings and participating. Unfortunately, it's been brought up that a lot of these points have been brought up at the 11th hour, which is making it very difficult on the council, but also, we're trying to find a middle road. But the problem I'm having is I feel like additional information is slowly coming in from the people who are against our redesign, and it's making it more difficult. So on Thursday, there was no discussion about inability to make left-hand turns. Chris Engel did ask, basically, I know the gallery couldn't answer, but asked us if keeping the parking spaces was, if losing the parking spaces was okay if we extend the turn lane to prevent stacking. I don't think any city council members voted to see another design as retribution in taking away parking spaces. We're trying to accommodate multiple groups. There were some points that are brought up that I didn't know until today, like the buses. I am open to talking about seeing more designs. I know that we feel like we're kind of against the clock. But I also, I don't know if we're going to be able to please everybody. But I am at this point open to maybe looking at a couple more designs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Silvers. Is there any other discussion from any other council member?
Actually, I
Yes.
think it's reasonable to expect we're going to please everybody. This is a compromise, so I'm just going to say that. And in my mind, the choices are now leave it alone, just don't even do anything don't do anything in historic downtown, and start our prettiness north of you. Not make you pretty, because if I leave it alone, I don't think I can put my arch up there. It can't be pretty. But just don't do it, and just start down where we feel like we are not going to get so much pushback. Or stick with what we see tonight. That's my choice right now. And that has nothing to do with this vote that David is asking for, but that's where I'm feeling.
Mr. LaHaye.
When I look at the plans as designed, I think it'd be nice to be able to extend 2 full lanes all the way back to the crosswalk. I think if we take it farther than that crosswalk, you lose what the crosswalk gains, which is access to the parking on the east side of the street. Having a narrow crosswalk at a raised cross will slow traffic down and make all those parkings on the east side of the street accessible to businesses on the west that they're not currently accessible to, because you have to cross 4 lanes of traffic and there's no marked crosswalks down there. That's what we're trying to do by making downtown more pedestrian friendly and making it more inviting for everybody, not just vehicles, not just cars.
Well, and to add on to that, it's not just people walking down there, like a lot of people have said. It's people that are having to park across the street and walk across the street too. Those are pedestrians too.
When there are more than 5 cars parked.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's hard to find parking because, you know, there's lots of traffic and things, but like, you know, this narrowing of the street will make you feel safer. Like I wouldn't currently park on 58th Terrace to walk across the street to go to Casey Strings or Guitar Lamp, personally, with my child in tow. So I mean, when we're thinking of pedestrians, it's not just pedestrians that are walking from my house on the east side of town. It's people that are parking down there, even parking at the marketplace and being able to enjoy walking down Merriam Drive.
I also wanted to address one comment. It was, somebody thought that I chose 58th Terrace as an arbitrary point between Johnson and Hawker. I chose it because it extends the left turn lane farther than the traffic study said we need queuing for. It gives us true queuing at 183 feet, which is more than the traffic study says we need.
However,
Mr. Neal?
and kind of to that point, we don't really know, and I'm not confident that the traffic study fully captures the situation that this area is going to face. And again, another alternative would be to actually use cones, including the thin ones, and see what happens if we do configure it according to one of these designs. And we'd actually have a better idea rather than just guessing. And we wouldn't be a very permanent problem to do that for a week or whatever. But if we have to make a decision, I believe that we need to go further back. And my judgment is not really any better than, certainly not better than anyone else. But we have to also, in my view, take account of the observations of the people that live there and see what happens every day. I live on Antioch. I see the traffic on Antioch. And so I kind of have a sense of what makes sense if somebody were to propose something on Antioch in my area. But we can get the data and we can look at some alternatives. We're not in a super rush. We're not talking about a huge delay here. I wouldn't need to see something else if I felt like that what's proposed tonight is really adequate. Again, as Councilmember Leahy has said, it would seem, again, it's not up there, but it would seem, even just to take it back past, it looks like that design is in order to keep the narrow crosswalk. You have to feather it out. Is that, I mean, if the crosswalk were moved a little bit further, can we extend that width a little bit further to the north? There's got to be a way to make this better than that is as a compromise, in my view. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Mr. Caldwell, go ahead.
We seem to have agreement that north of 58th Street, we like the design.
North of Hawker.
North of, well, okay. But in front of the marketplace, in front of the old 5701, it's these few blocks in historic downtown. So to your point, we could defer this whole discussion and design, just not do that, not spend any money there at this point until we can resolve these issues.
Well, my feeling is they don't want us to spend any money
It
there.
seems to me that when we can't decide what to do, we should, in this case, do nothing for those, what is it, 3 or 4 blocks.
And I'm hating it because I really wanted this to be pretty, walkable, safer, friendlier, more welcoming, up to date, all of those things. But it's just
Well, it's not
so painful.
It's not just about what you want too. It's about
Other people, a lot of
Right.
residents.
Yeah, I mean, I have spent a lot of time with you guys over the last couple of weeks, right? And I hear you, and you're making some really compelling points, and I'm taking all the information in, but it is it would be really unwise to ignore the fact that our residents who also pay taxes have said that this is a top priority for them. This is the top priority for them, multiple data points over multiple years. So to just say, oh, I don't want to do it, is to throw your hands up and say to the residents, well, whatever you said isn't important.
Well, I'm just saying not do it now. And that's why I think it would be a good idea not to spend any money on that historic downtown part at this time. Proceed with the rest of that project. And then we can work this out and come up with some plan that works for everybody. But I think we're a long ways away from having that plan.
And we
That was
will
an
know
option
what
in the packet. of
what the creek project will do.
That is certainly an option, is we can just move north of Hocker and leave downtown as it's been for years.
And continue to muddle our way through this until we can work it out.
Do we need to vote on Councilmember?
there's
Yeah,
a
we're going to
motion
have to,
on
yeah,
Motion.
when discussion's through, we will cast that vote.
We can call, you can call for the vote.
Okay, if there's no more
Call
discussion,
for
I'll
the
call.
question.
I call for the vote on Councilmember Neal's motion,
Yeah.
which was, can somebody rewind it and call it back?
Sure, it
Yeah.
was to
Two new designs.
create two more diagrams for review. The first one being a three-lane profile as it exists more or less today, Johnson to north of KC Strings alleyway entrance, keeping the west side parking as is. Then also a second design profile to look at, which would be Johnson Drive to Hocker, keeping the three-lane profile to Hocker, keeping the west side parking where it currently exists. That is the motion that has been made and seconded.
Okay, having.
Yep.
Everybody understand the motion, we will call for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Neal?
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder?
I'm okay seeing this proposed designs, so aye.
Councilmember Silvers?
After hearing the gallery cheer for doing nothing.
Councilmember Yodridge?
No.
Councilmember Shavetta?
Nay.
Councilmember Hands?
No.
Councilmember Caldwell?
No.
Councilmember Leahy?
No.
Motion fails. 5-3.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, so now we're back to kind of square zero. Is there any other motions at this point that somebody'd like to put forward with some of the discussions that we've had, whether that's to move forward with design as designed south of Hocker Drive and leave it alone, or accept it as is, or what is the will of the council?
I have a
Mr. Caldwell.
I would make the motion that we proceed with this project north of Hocker. And that south of Hocker, we do nothing at this time.
Okay, we have a
No
motion.
mill and overlay, no curbs,
No overlay, no curbs.
Operation
We're gonna
Green,
do it once, we do it right.
but still do Operation Greenlight on the intersection?
Why?
Why? We've been told they don't want us to do anything. Let's not do anything.
But what about
When we figure it out, we'll do it.
But we have
But we
Operation
haven't figured
Greenlight
it
now,
out.
don't we? It's just, we wouldn't be
Just
changing
we
it.
wouldn't change anything.
We wouldn't change anything.
Yeah,
It does
there's
exist.
cameras at the intersection.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to, here a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Ryder?
Nay.
Your vote is no? Okay. Councilmember Silvers?
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge?
No.
Councilmember Shavetta?
No.
Councilmember Hands?
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell?
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy?
No.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Comes down to you, Mayor.
Yep, Mayor, we'll need your vote for the tie.
It seems like we're down to 4-4.
Yes, we are.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot, guys.
It's your literal one job.
I guess I don't know I get paid enough for this, but yeah. Well, I've given this a lot of thought. Obviously, I've been down there and I've looked at the traffic and I've tried to figure out what's going to be best in light of this, because I want to see more bikeability. I want to see the pedestrians. I want to see greater safety. I've heard the plight and the concerns of our businesses, and obviously you're a very important part of our community and what you do for the city and what you've done in the past and will do in the future, and the revenue you generate and the services you provide. I hate to be in this position itself, but at this point, I think that the motion, because we can always do something later, I think I'm going to vote aye to just do things south of Hocker Drive and look at this.
North of Hocker Drive?
Excuse me, north of, thank you for the correction, north of Hocker Drive itself, and look at this whole situation once we know more what the creek project's going to do, because I think we may have some additional changes that may be occurring, and at that time, and if so, I think we can address that additional section itself of Merriam Drive, and hopefully come up with something that is amiable to all parties involved in making it more walkable and bikeable and safer. And so I guess that would be my decision, Madam Clerk, if you would.
Motion passes 5-4.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, let's see. Well, I guess that probably wraps up number 5. We still got a few hours left. Community development update, I think, is our next item on the agenda. Director Dyer.
You, Mayor, Council, Brian Dyer, Community Development Director. Just be real brief. Obviously, we've been through quite a bit the past couple of days. I think we all know, but this is first time been up here since it happened. If you haven't got it, you can get your burritos at Chipotle now. They are open for business. The library continues going, doing a lot of work over there. I was noticed over today they were over there pumping concrete. I assume they're doing footings and foundations over there. And so that project continues to go along forward. Also, the Cancer Center at Advent Health, if you haven't been over there, they're doing quite a bit of work over there as well. That'll be a great addition, a great entryway for the Advent Health facility. And then Merriam Grand Station, obviously it's boy, what a change of the landscape as you go down China Mission Parkway, not to see that Kmart building there anymore. It is really, yeah, a significant change. So they got all the demo work done over there. They are starting to do, bring in dirt and do compaction and do all the work they need to do for that. Speaking of which, also, if you haven't noticed it, the Synchrony building on 67th Street is also gone. The reason I bring that up is because the demo contractor for Kmart just picked up and moved a half-mile down to Synchrony, so that's what they've been doing work down there. A little bit back to the Merriam Grand Station project. We are still working with Evergy, working with their consultants, working with Merriam Grand Station developers on the undergrounding of the utilities along China Mission Parkway. Again, we'll update you as we move along through that process, but as come no surprise to you all, we'll bring you an update and then it'll go away for 2 to 3, 4 months to let the engineers and Evergy do the work they need to do. So we're hoping late this winter, early spring, we'll be back to you with more information about the status of that project. Then the last thing I have is, obviously we had the grant openings. First of the year had quite a few people apply for it. It was really had a number of folks come through there, more than what we had last year. So that program is off and running. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Director Dyer? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Neal. Start with you.
Have we got any kind of preliminary costs on the Evergy undergrounding project yet? Do we know? I know that we haven't done the engineering. They haven't done the engineering, but have they given you any preliminary ideas?
I think it's Still, I want to say we had 4.1 million is kind of the big ballpark number we're looking at right now. I think, if I remember correctly, I will go back and look through my notes. I know we have that, and in a previous presentation I'd given it. I'll go back through my notes and make sure that's the right number.
But there hasn't been anything that's come up that changes that, but, okay.
They have not indicated anything at this point in time, no.
Okay, Ms. Sands.
And I don't have a question, but I just want to compliment you on the graphs that you did for us for the year-end grant
you're
programs. So we have a historical picture of all the good that's been done by those grants. I thought it was really, really good demonstration. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from Director Dyer? Okay, I see none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay, it looks like next item up will be a monthly finance report. We got Finance Director Oliver coming forward.
Good evening. I don't get to speak twice in one evening very often, so. You should have found in your packet the December 22 preliminary finance report. It's preliminary because now finance is busily doing all of our year-end accruals to get everything that relates to 22 back in 22. So once that's accomplished, we'll come back with you with the final report. So I would be happy to answer any questions you might have about the report.
So we have any questions for Director Oliver?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, moving forward, I guess take it to you, Mr. Engel. Any staff items?
Sure, the only item I have is I will be in Minneapolis for volleyball on Thursday and Friday. I'll be available by phone, but I will be out of town.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
What's going on with the side of the building?
Sure. We, you want to answer that?
Yeah.
Um,
Love that.
You know, obviously, the contractor's substantially outside of the contractual timeframes, so we're in the process of making a claim pursuant to the construction documents. You know, there are different remedy provisions that we have to walk through, including putting their surety on notice, and so we're in the process of putting all that together and trying to get us to a place where somebody's going to wrap up the project and we get made whole.
Question answered. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Sands.
I'd like to add a comment on to that since we talked about the art committee, because the art committee did put in one of our projects into refacing this building. So the art committee is very anxious to see this resolved as well.
And we didn't pick the contractor,
No, we
so
did not.
going out to bid.
Any other questions for Mr. Engel? Yeah, seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Ms. Shadrich, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Have a motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Hand seconds. Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.